Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So last week, the FCC forced the cancellation of Jimmy Kimmel Live, clearly under pressure from the Orange One. Trump claims that the show was pulled because of bad ratings. Quite the reverse. It was pulled because the ratings are high, which meant it risked a lot of people learning that Charlie Kirk's killer was MAGA. And as Kimmel said, Trump cannot allow that. However, although this can be looked at as Trump successfully exercising authoritarian power again, something else happened. People hit back. Mass cancellations of Disney Plus accounts in protest, so many that the cancellation website kept crashing from the unprecedented load. And Disney they became a few $billion poorer. Might this apply a bit of pressure on corporations to have more backbone when facing government pressure? Democrats are useless, but people still have power if they use it. In America, of all countries, money talks. How loudly can the people make it talk? But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So $4.3 billion, that was what disappeared to begin with, at least, evaporated over a weekend. And what caused this financial earthquake? It wasn't a blockbuster movie flopping, right? Nor was it some Marvel mega event bombing at the box office. This shift happened because a late night host, Jimmy Kimmel, got benched. If you spent even 5 minutes online recently, you will have undoubtedly seen some of the hashtags, boycott Disney and so on. Heard the whispers, then the shouts about the mass exodus from Disney Plus. And you've maybe watched the sort of mouse's stock wobble and sway. Now, Jimmy Kimmel's nightly monologue, it's not something I'm familiar with, but people say, it's fairly predictable, it's fairly safe, it's a little edgy sometimes, it's basically safe for TV network jokes, right? It's a place where celebrities get roasted, politicians get lampooned, normal stuff. Only those with very thin skin have any issue with it. Oh, Donald Trump. And the biggest controversies of the day are usually handled with fairly good-humoured satirisation. On the subject of Charlie Kirk, Kimmel had unambiguously condemned the murder and sent his love to Kirk's family. Absolutely no accusations of tribal play for him in such an act of political violence. He unequivocally condemned it. There were no ifs or buts. But he was also pointing out that all the evidence showed that the murderer was a MAGA supporter who thought Kirk was too soft because he would talk to people on the other side. This could not be allowed. MAGA need the public to believe he was left-wing, preferably trans, or at least using trans bullets. They've now declared Antifa a terrorist organisation. And it's specifically because Kimmel doesn't have bad ratings that he represented such a threat to Trump. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered. If no one was going to listen to his musings, what threat was that to MAGA? Disney-owned ABC made an announcement. Kimmel would be on hiatus pending internal review, which, of course, in corporate speak means they've pulled him. Plain and simple. His microphone was turned off, chair empty. Reaction, fairly instant, fairly visceral. Supporters of Kimmel and free speech advocates generally immediately cried foul. They labelled the move as blatant censorship. They argued that a network shouldn't buckle under pressure from a vocal minority, especially when it comes to comedic commentary. On the flip side, of course, Kimmel's critics, many of whom had complained about his political humour for a while, still nonetheless described the move as corporate cowardice. They saw it as Disney caving into the loud voices, failing to stand by its talent. So even many of Kimmel's critics said this isn't on. So regardless of which side you leaned on, one thing was undeniable. The internet, fairly unruly beast at the best of times, grabbed its digital pitchforks, grabbed it with furious debates and accusations. There were social media creators capitalising on the viral moment, stitching together clips of Kimmel's past takedowns with the news of his suspension. And within just a few hours, hashtag free Kimmel, was absolutely dominating. So the stage was set for an unprecedented online uprising. And boycotts, as we know, they sometimes start small, a few angry tweets here and there, a couple of disgruntled Reddit threads, maybe an occasional TikTok rant or YouTube rant from someone who feels very passionately about it. But this boycott, didn't start small. It took off with astonishing speed. The morning after the Kimmel news broke, Google searches for cancel Disney Plus had shot up by 800%. Now, you think about that, several times the usual volume of people actively looking for instruction on how to ditch a subscription. There's always people who want to cancel a subscription. It's not always obvious they don't want you to cancel your subscription. So you'll do a Google search, but it just went up by 800%. That's not curiosity, that's intent. There was a Reddit, subreddit, the cord cutters, which is a place for people who look to ditch cable. It pinned a step-by-step cancellation guide for Disney Plus, which, with a lovingly crafted manual for defection. And the community completely embraced it. The post collected over 50,000 upvotes just over the weekend. A mountain of Reddit awards. Became a rallying cry for the disillusioned. Then, of course, came the influencers. They piled on, of course, because this was now a viral moment. It wasn't just political commentators or news junkies. There were beauty gurus who typically obviously focused on like makeup tutorials and stuff like that. They were posting screenshots of their cancelled Disney Plus accounts. Gaming streamers, usually gaming streamers, when they do dip into politics, most don't, tends to be the MAGA ones. So basically what I'm saying is the issue here transcended into non-political corners of social media, and the message, of course, spread like wildfire. The algorithms obviously go, oh, this is a viral moment, and they love it. So they see the engagement, the outrage, the clicks. They pushed every single angry video, every cancellation screenshot, every rant to new eyeballs, which creates a feedback loop, compounds the outrage, turns a ripple into a tidal wave. This is normally how the far right confected outrage spreads. They used that same device. Now the monster was eating its own children, fueling public outrage, not billionaire synthetic outrage. By day 3, the sheer volume of cancellations and customer inquiries meant that Disney Plus customer support wait times had gone to like 2 hours. And, oh, by the way, if you're in the UK, you'll think that's quite normal for customer support anywhere, isn't it? Not in America. And Hulu's help chat just crashed. Absolutely crashed, couldn't take the traffic. That's when Wall Street, who are, of course, sensitive to consumer sentiment and subscriber numbers, started to sweat a bit. The digital outrage had officially spilled over into the real world, and corporate giants began to feel the heat. Disney's share price, the metric by which the company's health is judged, crashed. As I say, it has recovered since, but for a company the size of Disney, these aren't just minor fluctuations. These are significant drops. You add it all up, the market capitalization, which is the total value of Disney's outstanding shares, and nothing to do with how much money they've lost because of the cancelled subscriptions, but just in terms of the share value, dropped by over $4 billion, according to the reports I'd seen. Financial analysts, who are the people whose job it is to spot trouble on the horizon, quickly flagged what they termed reputational risk. You know, it's not just bad PR, it's about the tangible impact that a damaged brand image can have on future earnings, investor confidence, and overall business stability. They didn't hesitate to slash near-term earnings estimates, which is a clear signal to the market that Disney's future looks less rosy than it had just a few days before. And that's where it gets quite interesting for me. See, what ABC, owned by Disney, did was cave into political pressure. Understandable, because Trump is a bully and he's on a mission to systematically bully every institution in America. Sometimes what helps a large corporation in this situation is, and this is what normally helps them get out of taxes, right? We've seen this before, is they go, oh, you don't want to hammer us too much because then it'll be like jobs and stuff like that and you'll hurt your economy and blah, 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 blah. Doesn't work on Trump. The man's a lunatic. It's trying to negotiate with the Joker, right? He's a lunatic. He's already done immense damage to the US economy for no purpose. His tariffs don't serve any great political purpose. Just done it anyway. So you can't really reason with Trump. So he's not just a bully. He's an insane bully, right? You know, he's the sort of person who would threaten you with a hand grenade and you go, but if you do that, you kill yourself. I don't care, right? Okay, yeah, you can't reason with someone like that. He's not in the White House for a few years to make a load of money. He's there for life. That's his plan anyway. And because the normal checks against his overreach, the Supreme Court and Congress, seem to be largely tame, there is nothing really to stop him. Trump can do a lot of damage to the profits of a large corporation like Disney. Large corporations are led by financial considerations. So the calculation was simple, wasn't it? Trump can threaten their profits. You trying to say to him, but you'll hurt the US economy and therefore your own political standing, doesn't work. So they did what he said. What harm would it do, they thought? Well, quite a bit as it happens. Now, and this is what investors will be thinking. Imagine if Americans opposed to fascism, they don't have to just be opposed to Republicans or anything like that, they don't have to be partisan, but just opposed to fascism, got together and decided to coordinate their consumer power. Imagine if they boycotted every corporation in whatever way they can who backs down to government pressure. That puts pressure on those same corporations in the other direction. The name of the game here is to threaten their profits, just like Trump is doing. And if you can pose a greater threat than Trump can, you win. Are pro-democracy campaigners in America taking note here? The Democrats are offering up about as much resistance to Trump as a dog being forced at gunpoint to eat a sausage. Some corporations have pushed back a bit against MAGA. Ironically, Disney did earlier this year, but he is slowly sapping their backbones. Trump is relentless with his attacks on legal firms, on universities, on media outlets, everyone. It's basically gaslighting on a grand scale. He raises the stakes sky high so that it's not worth fighting him. But people can fight this. They need to be coordinated. Of course, you need a sort of don't fund hate type campaign in America. Now, one person in America trying to make a stand doesn't have as much financial clout as one of Trump's billionaire backers, of course. But millions of them, tens of millions of them together do. If a corporation loses its reputation with customers, its share price tanks. We saw that. You may deprive a company of $1 billion in trade and cost it many times over in share value because of fears of continued boycotting. Now, when I was reading reports on this, they weren't talking about the money that Disney were losing over the cancelled subscriptions. It was the loss to their share price that was being featured. That's what mattered. If Americans want their institutions to stand up to Trump, they do have the power to lend their strength to the fight with targeted, coordinated boycotts. Let's see if it happens. But let me know what you think in the comments below. For more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.